Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Richard Cruz, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Captain Daniel Solomon. We warmly welcome the family of Lieutenant Robin Christiaan Pothof, whose story will be told shortly. We're honoured to acknowledge the members of the Royal Military College of Duntroon Class of 1968 Reunion Group, which includes His Excellency General, the Honourable Sir Peter Cosgrove, Governor-General of the Commonwealth of Australia. We also welcome members of the 7th Battalion Royal Australian Regiment Association, as well as past and present students of Knox Grammar School. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. And during this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by family and visitors to the memorial. I invite you all to please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. If you're able, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight we'll read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lieutenant Robin Christiaan Pothof. Robin Pothof was born in The Hague, Holland, on the 16th of June 1948 to Leendert and Margaret Pothof. His father was a Dutch naval officer who had served in Australian waters on special operations during the Second World War. During this time, he met and married Margaret, who was serving the Australian Army. In 1948, Leendert took his wife and young son to the Netherlands, where Robin was born. After retiring from the Dutch Navy, Pothof's father returned to the sea, working for Esso in the Indonesian islands. As her husband was at sea for long periods of time, Margaret took her sons to Australia and lived with her parents in Newcastle. In 1955, the family moved to Sumatra, where Pothof and his brother attended a Dutch school. Both boys became fluent speakers of Dutch and Bahasa. 5 years later, Pothof's father, who still worked for Esso, was transferred to Singapore. Pothof began high school the same year, attending Knox Grammar School in Sydney as a boarder. He became known as an excellent swimmer and was an active member of the school's cadet unit. After completing high school, he was accepted into the Royal Military College, Duntroon in Canberra. Pothof arrived at RMC on the 29th of January 1965. He soon became known as an excellent swimmer and a good water polo player. His classmates called him the Fish. In 1968, he was president of the RMC Swimming Committee and played in the first water polo team. His superiors and classmates remembered him as having a cheerful and easygoing personality. Pothof was also remembered as an excellent writer and was awarded the Sydney Morning Herald Award for the best essay on the use of armour. His leave breaks were spent in Singapore with his parents, and in 1968 yearbook, his classmates called him our man in Singapore. On the 11th of December 1968, Pothof received his commission as a lieutenant. He was posted to the 7th Battalion, the Royal Australian Regiment, which was at Holsworthy preparing for its second deployment to Vietnam. He became platoon commander of 9 Platoon, Charlie Company, and by the end of 1969 was regarded as a good platoon commander. On 3rd of February 1970, with 7RR less than a fortnight away from sailing to Vietnam, Pothof was hospitalised. His service record does not record the cause, but he was not released until the 18th of the month, 2 days after the main body of the battalion had sailed for Vietnam. Pothof flew out of Sydney on the 3rd of March and landed in Saigon the following day. He rejoined his battalion at the 1st Australian Task Force base at Nui Dat soon after. The men of 7RR began operations immediately and involved in a number of contacts over the next month. During this time, the barrier minefield, which had been laid by Australian engineers in 1967 between Dat Do and Lang Phuc Hai, was being removed. Mines were lifted by the enemy and used against the Australians, with devastating consequences. In April, 7RR was involved in an operation which aimed to destroy the Viet Cong's Delta 445 Provincial Mobile Battalion. Charlie Company, however, was sent to the Horseshoe near Dat Do to train soldiers of the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, conduct patrols and ambushes, and provide security to Australian engineers tasked with clearing the minefield. On the 22nd of April, Pothof's platoon was sent to Night Defensive Position Timothy near Ap Lo Gom to provide security for a mine-clearing team that was stationed there. 3 nights later, Pothof and the engineer officer, Lieutenant Savage, who happened to be a classmate, rode along in an armoured personnel carrier led by Sergeant Roy Savage through a gap in the minefield to conduct an ambush patrol. The APC dropped off the patrol and returned to Night Defensive Position Timothy without incident, but Savage and his men became involved in a sustained firefight. On the morning of the 26th of April, Savage was flown back to Task Force headquarters to debrief senior officers. He did not return to Timothy until mid-afternoon. Though Savage had had no rest, Pothof had developed a tropical ulcer on his leg and was forced to hand command of his patrol to Savage. In exchange, Pothof agreed to do Savage's job, travelling out with patrol to reconnoitre a position for an ambush patrol the following night. Pothof rode out of the patrol, sitting on top of the APC to conduct his reconnaissance. When the APC slowed down at the drop-off point, the patrol exited the moving vehicles so as to not give their positions away to any enemy in the vicinity. As the APCs re-entered the minefield gap on the return journey, the APC Pothof was riding on triggered a pressure mine which had been made with around 30 kilograms of plastic explosive and laid in the minefield gap by the Viet Cong. The 4C explosion threw the APC into the air and Pothof was killed instantly. Savage later recalled turning around after hearing the explosion and seeing the APC return to Earth upside down. As night had fallen, a Centurion tank was sent from Timothy, which is only a few hundred metres away, to provide illumination of the area with its searchlight. Riding on the back of the tank was an engineer mini-team, which began the painstaking task of clearing a path to the APC. This enabled the 4 wounded APC crewmen from B Squadron, 3rd Cavalry Regiment, to be recovered and evacuated. Despite providing some illumination, the tank searchlight could not locate Pothof. It wasn't until a Sioux helicopter flew over the site of the incident using its searchlight that Pothof's badly mutilated body was found over 15 metres from the upturned APC near the edge of the minefield. A memorial service for Pothof was held at Dat Doe on the 30th of April, with 7RL's Padre, Father Keith Teefy, officiating over a ceremony that ended with Sergeant Roy Savage playing the last post on his own bugle. Pothof's remains were returned to Australia and laid to rest with full military honours on the 7th of May 1970 in the RSL section of Woden Cemetery, Canberra. He was 21 years old. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my left, along with more than 500 others from the Vietnam War. His photograph is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lieutenant Robin Christiaan Pothof, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. For the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes this evening's last post ceremony. We thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial and wish you all a very good evening. Thank you.